Hello and welcome to Rosslyn Hill Chapel, a Unitarian spiritual community here in Hampstead. We call it a spiritual home for open minds. My name is Reverend Kate Dean and I am proud to serve as the minister for this beautiful and sacred place. Today is Palm Sunday and we celebrate the teachings of Jesus in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Palm Sunday is perhaps an easier celebration for many Unitarians than Easter Sunday. We recognise and follow the teachings of Jesus as part of our Christian heritage. We can imagine how it must have felt for the people of Jerusalem, full of hope that they were about to be liberated from their oppressors, and the subsequent examples of betrayal and cruelty which are woven through with human emotions. We know that stories about Jesus were shared orally within the early Christian groups and eventually written down. Of the many Gospels, only a few of them were chosen to be included in the New Testament. The role that Mary Magdalene played, or may have played, in the leadership of the early Christian groups has been painted out of many traditional accounts. The Gospel of Mary was not one of those traditional accounts. It was discovered as a fragment of parchment in the 19th century and records the prominent role that Mary Magdalene played within the group of disciples. There's also inference to the animosity between Mary and the Apostle Peter, which perhaps indicates one reason why her role was so hidden for so long. And this gospel has been used as an argument for more equal leadership roles for women in the established churches. The Catholic Church recognised Mary's position as the apostle to the apostles in the 1980s, and more recently, her name was added to the other apostles celebrated in the Catholic Mass just a couple of years ago. Some scholars suggest that the Gospel of Mary also represents an interpretation of Jesus' teachings as a spiritual path to inner enlightenment, rather than emphasising external forces. There are many different ways to view the Easter story. One that is less often considered is through the eyes of Mary, the mother of Jesus. We can imagine that she felt proud of her son's efforts and yet also afraid that he was walking a very dangerous path. So today we will view this ancient story from a different perspective. First we'll hear Jesus' teachings in modern language, and then in our second reading we'll experience that first Palm Sunday entrance through the eyes of Mary, the mother of Jesus. I light our chalice flame now, the symbol of our liberal religious faith. Again, we have our candles of joys and concerns, and as I light a few of these candles, you may wish to think of joys and concerns that you are holding in your heart this week. And I light a candle of hope for all of us going through these difficult times. Let us now sing together our first hymn.
When Jesus
usually at this time in our service, I invite people to greet their neighbours, to turn to someone near you, say your name and welcome them to chapel. And of course, here I am on my own again and not able to do that. So I wonder whether instead you might like to give a smile to someone, a stranger you see when you're out walking in the street. Smile at someone new today as you're greeting. Usually we also have a children's chapel, and actually we have a separate session compiled by our children's chapel leader Katie Gosling, and you can also see that on our YouTube channel. It is on the theme of liberation, so please do have a watch of that and enjoy. After our greeting, we often pass round the collection plate and we divide it between the upkeep of this beautiful chapel and our chosen good cause or charity each month. At the moment, we are asking people to make their donations in one of two ways, either to up your standing order if you're a chapel member, up your regular monthly donations, or you can contact our chapel administrator, Angela, and I'll put the email address on the screen now for you so that you can find out how to transfer funds to our bank account. Our first reading is from the Gospel of Luke, and it is the modern Message version. You're blessed. This reading is taken from the Sermon on the Plain, with similar messages from Jesus as the Sermon on the Mount. And I chose this particularly modern version as I think it's important that we have to imagine what it must have been like for the followers of Jesus living in such dangerous times. These poor and oppressed people flocked to hear his words of comfort and hope. Coming down off the mountain with them, he stood on a plain surrounded by disciples and was soon joined by a huge congregation from all over Judea and Jerusalem, even from the seaside towns of Tyre and Sidon. They had come both to hear him and to be cured of their ailments. Those disturbed by evil spirits were healed. Everyone was trying to touch him. So much energy surged from him, so many people healed. And then he spoke. You're blessed when you've lost it all. God's kingdom is there for the finding. You're blessed when you're ravenously hungry. Then you're ready for the messianic meal. You're blessed when the tears flow freely. Joy comes with the morning. Count yourself blessed every time someone cuts you down or throws you out, every time someone smears or blackens your name to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and that person is uncomfortable. You can be glad when this happens. Skip like a lamb if you like. For even though they don't like it, I do. And all heaven applauds. And know that you are in good company. My preachers and witnesses have always been treated like this. Give away your life. But it's trouble ahead if you think that you have it made. What you have is all you'll ever get. And it's trouble ahead if you're satisfied with yourself. Yourself will not satisfy you for long. And it's trouble ahead if you think life's full of fun and games. There's suffering to be met, and you're going to meet it. There's trouble ahead when you live only for the approval of others, saying what flatters them, doing what indulges them. Popularity contests are not truth contests. Look how many scoundrel preachers were approved by your ancestors. Your task is to be true, not popular. To you who are ready for the truth, I say this: love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the energies of prayer for that person. If someone slaps you in the face, stand there and take it. If someone grabs your shirt, gift wrap your best coat and make a present of it. If someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice the servant life. No more tit-for-tat stuff. Live generously. Here is a simple rule of thumb for behaviour. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you. Then grab the initiative and do it for them. If you only love the lovable, do you expect a pat on the back? Run-of-the-mill sinners do that. If you only help those who help you, do you expect a medal? Garden variety sinners do that. If you only give for what you hope to get out of it, do you think that's charity? The stingiest of pawnbrokers do that. I tell you, love your enemies. Help and give without expecting a return. You'll never, I promise, regret it. Live out this God-created identity, the way our Father lives towards us, generously and graciously. Even when we're at our worst, our Father is kind. So you, be kind. Don't pick on people, jump on their failures, criticise their faults, unless, of course, you want the same treatment. Don't condemn those who are down. That hardness can boomerang. Be easy on people. You'll find life a lot easier. Give away your life. You'll find life given back. But not merely given back with bonus and blessing. Giving, not getting, is the way. Generosity begets generosity. Our second reading is Mother Mary's Palm Sunday by Katie Munich. This wasn't how she had imagined it. She had imagined this day or that day like today. A day of arrival, a procession, a claim. He would be welcomed and lauded with loud shouts and honour, and then there would be a place for him on high. With gifts like his, a day like this must be on its way. That wasn't just Mother's pride. Everyone could see that he was destined for great things. You could hear it when he spoke. His manner was different. Right from when he was a boy, he could look right into you and speak with such directness and wisdom. He could speak to anyone, and he never said what they expected or what they wanted to hear, but only what he thought. She didn't know where he got that from. Not from her, most certainly. She had plenty of thoughts, that's for sure, but she carried them close. She wasn't going to tackle the powers that be, regardless of her own thinking. That's not the way to live in peace. But this son of hers was different. He spoke out like the prophets of old, just like she had imagined he might back when she started imagining him. Back when his beautiful, mysterious life began, and then all that wondering and worrying, and now here he was. A man with a powerful voice for peace. They needed him now in the temple, of course. That's where he should be, explaining and advising, bringing the light that he was so good at finding in the oldest stories into these strange and shadowed days. The high priest should seek him out. They had certainly heard about him, everyone had. So they should seek him and call him out and bring him up to a place where he might be a force for good, don't you think? Sure, he wasn't from the right family and he wasn't Jerusalem born, but he had the gifts, and that should matter more, for the good of the people. But now she worried that he was going about it all the wrong way. He was spending his time trying to change the people instead of changing the ways of the nation. He was wasting his time on a very small stage. And she worried that the powers that be wouldn't like it either. What he was doing, what he was saying, put power, or the dream of power, in the hands of the people. It was upside down. And all these people now in the streets were making too much noise, just like a celebration or a festival to rival the temple festivals. What were they celebrating anyway? The kingdom of God is near. That's what they claimed. And Jesus, save us. That's what they were shouting. Revolutionary words. You can't stir the people up like that and then expect a quiet life. She wished he could have a quiet life. Not that she expected to convince him that Nazareth would be best and that it might be time to settle down. She'd tried that before, and he'd only turned away. Thought she was trying to silence him, to hide him maybe. But, of course, it was quite the opposite. She wanted him to be seen, but seen in the right way, not in this loud and dangerous procession. The best thing for him would be to be a wise man, a prophet even, in a small town, and then to be discovered by those who could actually do something about it. Like a promotion, as it were. Brought to the seat of the power and given space and power to speak, not forced not force him into Jerusalem with the rabble, not mess around with crowds and donkeys. Of course, he was seeing it all in light of that ancient prophecy about the king's arrival on a donkey, and she was sure that he believed that he was preaching peace. But she wasn't sure that the temple authorities would see it that way. The loud crowds didn't feel like peaceful people. They felt like people on the edge, and that felt dangerous. She imagined the authorities looking down from their high places, watching. She imagined how they might see these crowds, how they might see her son and his dangerous peace, how they might mutter. But she couldn't imagine what might happen next, nor where this crowded road might end. She didn't want to imagine that far. This ancient story of timeless wisdom is a human story, filled with human emotions, behaviour, and responses. The joy and anticipation when Jesus enters Jerusalem, eventually transformed into fear and anger, disappointment and grief. We can imagine how difficult it was to hold on to hope when the promise of liberation from your oppressors is snatched away, the confusion of hearing Jesus forgive his tormentors, the fear that you might be next. Our current situation in confinement cannot compare with those days, and it's probably not helpful to regard the spread of this terrible pandemic as a war with all the bombastic language which comes with it. But we can be inspired by the strength of the human spirit and its ability to come through such difficult circumstances. It is easy to let our situation mess with our minds, with the talk of the virus as a hidden enemy. We'd be forgiven for regarding anyone we encounter on the streets with suspicion. A simple trip to the supermarket takes on a fearful aspect, and the semi-deserted streets and lack of traffic seem to add to the uneasy atmosphere. Part of the problem is the uncertainty about how long such restrictions will last. Weeks can feel like months, and the prospect of measures continuing to stretch out into the future can seem unbearable at times. Yes, we are living in a modern age with the sort of technology at our fingertips not dreamt of by previous generations. While video calls or online classes are poor substitutes for face-to-face connection, they can certainly be better than the alternative, total isolation. So what can we learn from the teachings of Jesus and the Easter story in particular, which might help us through these challenging and uncertain times? The most important lesson of Jesus' teachings is inevitably the return to love. Rather than hoping for a paradise after life, I believe he was encouraging his followers to build heaven in their hearts and their lives. And within this universal, unconditional love is the answer to so many of the injustices in the Easter week. The betrayal and brutality are met with forgiveness and compassion. It points the way forward for us to live in even the most basic functions of our lives. We may not be facing the cruelty depicted in the Easter story, but we have opportunities, perhaps every day, to practice forgiveness and compassion. So next time you see a loved one who is behaving inconsiderately, or a family member who's acting out of their frustration at being cooped up at home, do all you can to radiate love. Meet them with forgiveness for unthinking actions. Meet them with compassion for the situation so many of us find ourselves in. And of course, don't forget to find some compassion for yourself. If charity begins at home, kindness begins with the self-care which will enable us to radiate out limitless love and compassion for all. Blessed be. And now let's sing our closing hymn. Spirit of life and love, may we be blessed with the knowledge passed down through centuries and generations that rests in our hearts. May we be blessed with the ability to love and to forgive, and always act with compassion. Blessed be, and Amen.